Good evening and welcome to today's webinar, Building Towards Workplace Utopia, a conversation with Tim Ryan, U.S. Chair and Senior Partner, PwC. This evening's webinar is part of Georgetown McDonough's Stanton Distinguished Leaders Series. My name is Stephanie Martineau and I'm the Director of Events at Georgetown McDonough. Before we get started with tonight's event, I'd like to share a few webinar tips and reminders. This webinar broadcast is being recorded. The recording will be made available on the Georgetown McDonough YouTube channel shortly after today's broadcast. Our panelists will take a few questions towards the end of today's program. Thank you to those who have already submitted your questions. Please feel free to send your questions as you have them throughout the program using the Q&A function at the bottom of the Zoom screen. If you're having any technical difficulties or other issues, please also use the Q&A function and our tech team will help you. Now I'm pleased to introduce Dean Rebecca Hamilton, Michael G. and Robin Pissarro's chair and professor of marketing. Over to you, Dean Hamilton.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for today's Stanton Distinguished Leaders Series lecture with our guest, Tim Ryan of PwC. Georgetown has had a long history of partnerships with PwC, from our undergraduate Smart Start program to participating in the Check Your Blind Spots tour to sending many of our graduates to work at the firm. Established by Dan and Mary Stanton, the parents of two McDonough alumni, our Stanton series connects our McDonough community with renowned executives who share stories about leadership in an ever-changing world. Today, we'll explore a critical topic for business and society, combating racism and building corporate and societal cultures that truly embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion. At Georgetown McDonough, it's our responsibility to prepare our students to become principled and compassionate leaders, lessons we draw from our faculty's research and thought leadership, as well as our Jesuit mission to pursue social justice. We appreciate the opportunity to host Tim Ryan today. He'll share his personal journey to realize, react to, and prioritize combating racial injustice, ranging from his own efforts at PwC starting in 2016 to his thoughts on how corporate America can address racial inequality and promote a more diverse and inclusive workforce at all levels of an organization. Tim is the co-founder of CEO Action for Diversity and Inclusion, the largest CEO-driven business commitment to advance diversity and inclusion in the workplace. More than 1,400 CEOs of companies and business organizations signed on already, making a commitment to a specific set of actions that their organizations take to cultivate a workplace where diverse perspectives and experiences are welcomed and respected, and where employees feel comfortable and encouraged to discuss diversity and inclusion. We're proud that Georgetown's president, John DeGioia, is among these 1,400 CEOs who signed this pledge already, and that Georgetown and the McDonough School of Business have made it a priority to not only prepare our students to be the leaders the world so greatly needs, but also look within our own organization to ensure we're being truly inclusive. We've had several community events to discuss diversity, equity, and inclusion over the past several months, and this fall we launched a standing committee on diversity, equity, and inclusion to ensure that we work from within to make an impact, impact on the world around us. I mentioned our Smart Start program earlier, which is a partnership with PwC. This program provides a series of workshops, panels, and events to equip a diverse pool of first and second year undergraduate students with tools for academic and personal and professional success. The students work with mentors who are Georgetown alumni who currently work for PwC. And as a result of this program, many of the participants have been hired as interns at PwC. And we hope to continue to extend our reach beyond the hilltop. This fall, we welcomed the third cohort of formerly incarcerated DC citizens into our Pivot program, where they earn a certificate in entrepreneurship and the liberal arts. And they're matched with workforce participation and internships in cooperation with the DC city government. To date, not one of our fellows has returned to prison after completing the program. Instead, they're launching businesses, securing jobs, and finding the second chances that they deserve. And our faculty are working with others to change the narrative in DC and across the country around the value of hiring these amazing individuals. So we look forward to hearing from you, Tim, about the initiatives you've launched at PwC and the best practices you've established that all of us can learn from. Tim has had a distinguished career at PwC, where he currently serves as the U.S. Chairman and Senior Partner. He previously served as vice chairman with responsibility for the firm's strategy function and stakeholder relationships, including investor relations, regulatory affairs, public policy, corporate responsibility, marketing and sales, and human capital. Tim has over 25 years of experience serving clients in the US and internationally. In past roles, Tim led PwC's assurance practice, its US financial services practice, and consumer finance group. Notably, he's a member of PwC's Closing the Expectation Gap Committee, which designed and implemented improvements to PwC's audit process to address gaps between the expectations of constituents and accounting standards. He's also served on the US Board of Partners and Principals and the Global Board. Tim is a certified public accountant in Massachusetts and New York, and a member of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. He serves on the Board of Trustees for the Securities and Exchange Commission's Historical Society, and he's a graduate of Babson College, where he studied accounting and communications and remains an active and proud alum. Today's program will be moderated by my colleague, Ella Washington, a professor of practice in our management area. Ella is an organizational psychologist who explores the intersection of business, diversity, and leadership. Her research examined characteristics of workplace cultures that support inclusion, diversity, and equity, while also contributing to building each individual's development. And I recommend her very thoughtful recent article in the Harvard Business Review, which encourages businesses to take meaningful action against racism. She reminds all of us to think critically about how we can use our own power to affect change. Thank you, Tim, and thank you, Ella, for taking the time to speak with our community about such a critical set of issues that our nation is facing and has been facing for some time. I look forward to learning from both of you.
Thanks, Rebecca. Hi, Tim. How are you today?
Hi, Dr. Washington. I'm doing great. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thanks so much for being here. I am truly honored to share this space with you. I'm super excited for our conversation. So much to talk about. So let's just jump right in it in the interest of time and talking about as much as we can. So first off, PwC has long been a trailblazer in the world of DE&I. In 1999, you began offering same-sex domestic partner benefits. In 2001, you had the first woman partner elected. In 2003, you elevated the chief diversity officer position to the executive team. Kind of all of these great things that you all have done in your history. However, I'd like to start our conversation with a pivotal moment, I think, in PwC's journey in DE&I. Imagine it's 2016, you've just stepped into your role as US chairman. The firm has the most diverse leadership team in its history, and someone gets the bright idea to have the first firm-wide conversation about race. Can you take us back to that decision? What sparked it, and why was it important to you that that conversation take place?
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Washington. Let me just also thank you and Rebecca for having me here today, and to all of your participants. It's great to spend the time. So let me get to your question. So I'll tee this up. We at PwC, our governance structure is very unique. I'm elected by my 3,800 partners. I tell people we're a lot like the United States. We're just a lot more civil, meaning one partner, one vote. And I started my term on July 1, 2016. So my first week in July of 2016. And I'm speaking to the McDonough School of Business. So I had a great 100-day plan. Like if you saw it, I hope you would have graded me like just perfect. It had great plans for revenue growth. It was going to take market share. It was going to change the business model. It had technology. It had everything you could imagine. And I was 4 days into the role. And if you go back to the summer of 2016 and that first week in July, on that Friday morning, we woke up to shootings in Dallas. And that was on the heels of violence in Minneapolis and violence in Louisiana. And that morning of that first Friday, so my 5th day in the role, we did something fairly unremarkable. We sent a note out to all of our people, 55,000 people, and we said, we know this is on your minds and we're all here together. Wasn't terribly brave. And what happened though is there were hundreds and hundreds of emails that came back in response to that. And one of the emails said, Tim, thanks for the email. The firm has long stood for diversity and inclusion. We've done a lot of things, some of which you mentioned. But I have to be honest, Tim, when I came to work this morning, the silence was deafening.
Mm.
And Dr. Washington, for me, that was the moment where my 100-day plan got thrown out the window. It was a massive pivotal moment because what really became clear was here we are 2 decades on our D&I journey and a lot of great landmarks that we could point to, but it was clear we had missed the foundational element. And that foundational element was we were uncomfortable talking about race. Like we were uncomfortable. Like we had programs, we had awards, we had recognition, we had succession planning, but we were uncomfortable talking, even to the point where our people would come to work when something really bad had happened in our country and they didn't know how to talk about it. And that was for us the moment the 100-day plan got thrown out the window. And that's when we decided to have a day-long discussion on race, which was held 2.5 weeks later, which for a large organization as big as ours, to pivot that quickly was a remarkable pivot. And so to answer your question, the moment that shifted it was that Friday morning when one of our people said, I came to work and the silence was deafening.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Tim. You know, this notion of being uncomfortable with these conversations about race has certainly been on our minds over the past few months. What makes you comfortable or comfortable with discomfort around talking about race?
For me personally, I've grown more comfortable about it, and I'll go back to 2016. When what we started doing in 2016, in the summer of 2016, I started talking with groups of leaders, and we were progressive. Let me give you a sense as to how uncomfortable it was. I would ask a group of leaders, primarily white men, how many of you are uncomfortable whether you should use the word Black or African American? Half the room raised their hands. Like, that's how uncomfortable we were. And to be clear, we were a mirror of corporate America. Like, we're no better, we're no worse. Like, that's how basic it was. And I was in that group. Here I am leading it. Sure, you're trying to do the right thing, and you're that unsure on that basic question, which is why I'm so glad we jumped in on July 21, 2016. And let me take you to that day. As we were leading up to that day, so 2.5 weeks of preparation, I was talking to leading CEOs, just in the normal course of my job, talking to leading CEOs. One Fortune 50 CEO, who you would all recognize who it was, I don't mean to point, he pointed at me, said, Tim, that's going to blow up in your face. And I said to him, I said, it may, but if we don't get over this discomfort we have, we're never going to break through to the level we really need to do. And Dr. Washington, what we learned on that day, just to give you a sense, because we were able to break some of the walls down, I did that day both in Atlanta and New York. What I learned in Atlanta is that some of our Black professionals, they carried their PwC business card along with their driver's license, because if they got pulled over, they wanted to be able to show they could afford the car. We never knew that before. We learned on that day that some of our Black professionals were teaching their children how to be pulled over because there was a right way and a wrong way to get pulled over. And we also learned in New York that some of our Black professionals, when they were walking the hallways of our office at 300 Madison Ave, they felt they were being watched because they didn't belong. And that day helped me get a lot more comfortable. It wasn't about getting it wrong, Black versus African American. The real error, or what would really be wrong, is not talking about this stuff. And that day gave me great confidence at a personal level to break through and just like stumble through and have the conversations that were so necessary. And that for us was a pivotal moment in our journey, because what happened was that day, it was permission from the top. It was me saying, I want us all to shut the business down for a day. And whether you're sitting in Los Angeles, Dallas, Minneapolis, Chicago, Boston, Atlanta, New York, have the conversations. We continue that over and over again to the point now where it's beginning to be cultural. You don't need a permission slip from the senior partner to go have these conversations.
That's excellent and so eye-opening on the employee lived experience. And I think that's what many organizations are now just embarking on understanding, what is the experiences of our employees in our halls or when they're out with clients. So I think that's a fantastic opportunity that it sounds like PwC took advantage of. Now, since 2016, what's been the most important aspect of PwC's culture that you've tried to influence around maybe some of these issues you heard in that day of dialogue?
Yeah, so really great question. One of the things that I'm proud of is that we stuck with it. And we'll toggle back and forth between 2016 and the present. I'm really proud of where corporate America is right now, but so many people talking, we're having this conversation. We need to keep it up. Like we can't get distracted by the next thing that they may take our off the ball. And we stuck with it. And one of the things that I'm really proud of is that over the last couple of years, it has now become cultural. It's not, the cultural journey is not complete, but it's become cultural. I'll share with you a story. In the fall of 2018, September of 2018 to be specific, one of our own Black professionals was watching Thursday Night Football in his apartment in Dallas. Someone came into his office, an off-duty Dallas police officer, and shot and killed him. And she thought it was her apartment, and it was his apartment. What I'm proud of is his name was Botham Jean. He was he was on our high performer list. He was doing great things in our firm. And in that tragedy, what made me proud is the fact that we knew what to do around talking about it, and the firm didn't need permission from the top. We were 2 days into our journey, and because we had been sticking at it, in the face of tragedy of one of our own, not just a name on the news or a name on Twitter or a name on social media, one of our own, we knew what to do. And all across the country, the silence was not deafening. Like, we knew what to do. So because we had stuck at it, drove it from the top, it had begun to become cultural all around. And here's what we learned. Now you asked, what have we learned? What we learned is that our Black professionals, while they appreciate the leadership, they're a bit angered by the fact that we're horrified that these things happen. Because to them, they're glad that we're leaning in, but they're upset that we're surprised at their reality. And what we've now come to appreciate is there's a reality. Like, there's a reality that our professionals are living, our people and citizens are living every day, that we see a George Floyd get murdered, we see a Botham Jean get killed, and we lean in. Of course, it's the right thing to do. And there's gratefulness, but there's also this disappointment. Like, folks, like, this is what we've been living for decades and centuries. Please don't be surprised. Like, help us, but please don't be surprised. I would tell you that's the biggest thing we've learned.
Yeah. It really hits home. You know, you have these conversations, and that moment of surprise is often a moment of shock, I think, on the other side for me as a Black woman, because it's like, you know, I remember in one interview recently, someone asked me, when is the first time that you remember being, knowing you were Black? And I'm like, I've always known I was Black, right? But the person who I was interviewing with, you know, she said, well, it wasn't until college that I really recognized that I was a white woman. So I certainly can understand that perspective and how your employees might be feeling. One thing that
I'm sorry, can I share some, Dr. Washington? One of the biggest worries that I have, and I've been fortunate. I'm fortunate to sit in the CEO seat, which means you see a lot. I'll often get thousands of emails to an email I'll send. Our culture is such, you can go right to the top, and I'm proud of that culture. But my inbox is overwhelming, and the stories bring tears to your eyes on a regular basis. When I look at Botham Jean being killed, our own Botham Jean, what we can't have is everybody needs to stick their finger in the wounds and learn it personally. Like, part of what I've learned is when I hear your story, when you talk about when someone asks you that question, one of the things that I'm constantly struggling with is, how do you accelerate our learning? Because if the learning is that every one of us has to have that experience or meet that person that's overcome 20 challenges and been treated horrifically, if we all doubt it until we see it or experience firsthand, like, the journey is delayed. We need to find a way to accelerate it. And frankly, that's one of the benefits that come out of, and I'm using quotes for those who can't see me, one of the benefits out of George Floyd's killing is it's accelerating our learning and opening our eyes where we all don't have to experience it personally.
Right.
And again, I always try to look for the silver lining in bad things. I think that's one of the things that I'm a little bit excited about, which is our learning is getting accelerated because the stories are being told over and over again on social media, in one-on-one, in conversations like this, that hopefully get to the point where we get over the learning part and we get into the solving part.
That's right. Well, and I think I've seen you all put kind of your money where your mouth is in terms of the solving part. So one of the most notable things that have happened this year, and I know it was already a part of your plan, but it got accelerated, was this huge release of your data in a way that we have not seen at a company at PwC's level.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, I've met with a lot of CEOs who asked me, should we release our data? And there's a lot of trepidation around being so transparent around your demographics. And you all had 14 points of data that you released. And it certainly it's trailblazing and innovative for your industry and for many companies alike. Can you talk me through kind of the decision to release that data and maybe even some roadblocks that you all faced in doing that?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for recognizing the transparency report. I'm going to go back to 2016 because what we realized is we set a goal, and I mean it, like the 100-day business plan went out the window. It didn't physically go out the window, but it went out the window. And what we said is we're going to lead through people. Like if we have, what I realized as a very young CEO at the time, here I am with a very ambitious business plan. And I had 100% physical attendance, but I didn't have 100% mental and heart attendance. That for me was the real turning point. And in order to really achieve success, you need mental and you need the heart, and you need to have people who are really, really engaged. And we didn't have it. That, by the way, I don't think many had it. And that for us was the big turning point. So we looked in the mirror, and it caused us to really look objectively in the mirror. We could have been defensive and said, wait a minute, we're rated #1 by Diversity Inc. We've gotten awards. We've done some of the things you mentioned. But we looked at it and said, you know what? Nah, like we're not nearly as good as we think we are. And we didn't let ourselves be defensive. And we then made a number of very clear, deliberate goals. So one of them was we said in the next 3 to 4 years, we're going to go transparent. We made that decision three years ago. We also said one of the things that we're going to do is we're going to improve as much as we could say how good we are. So we made some very deliberate choices. We changed where we recruit. So we hire both experienced people into the firm and college recruits, as Rebecca pointed out. We widened the net. We went to over 20 HBCUs and historically Hispanic universities, Latinx universities. And guess what? In the last 3 years, we've seen record recruiting. We changed the way we recruit at the experience level, and we've seen record recruiting. We put a direct light on our board, and we have now a more diverse board than we've had before. We put a direct light on our partner admissions process and put in a number of programs, and we've seen over the last 2 years record outcomes. So we said we need to not get caught up in how good we were, but we need to recognize we had a ton of improvement. One of those was being more transparent. And so what we did is we said we wanted to inspire the business community to go further. And that's what we've been trying to do through this group called CEO Action that I know we'll talk about in a second. But we said, if we're going to inspire, we need to lead by example. And so our goal was to become the most transparent company, we're a firm, but the most transparent company in America. And we studied, we looked at where they were. And by the way, companies like Salesforce, among others, they do a great job. And they were the benchmark. And we said, we want to go further. And we want to continue to try to, and by the way, I hope somebody passes us tomorrow, right? And so what we did is we studied over 200 metrics that stakeholders might want to see, and we chose 14, the 14 most meaningful ones to us. And as you point out, in August, we went transparent. Some of the barriers, well, we're not that good. People are going to think that, they're going to criticize us if we're not that good. Folks, no large company's that good. Like that's part of the journey. And so what we want to do is say it's okay to be not that good. And by the way, with 50,000 people, 55,000 people, that's our denominator. Like your denominator is your base, But what I want us to do is show people it's not about the denominator, it's not about a point in time, it's about progress. And so we hope to accomplish by being transparent is measure us on our progress year in and year out as we go there. And so part of the barriers to getting transparent, some people, both on my team externally, said, well, you're going to be transparent. People are going to see what your gaps are. Yeah, they are. And I'm okay with that, but measure us on the progress in closing those gaps. So that was one big one. The other big one is we sat there and said, if you're a leader and your numbers aren't that good, will people still follow? And I think part of leadership is admitting your faults, admitting where you are and where you're not, and then say, look, we're going to get there together. So those are some of the challenges that we faced, and ultimately we got there. And by the way, the market reaction has been phenomenal. Like the market reaction by our clients and by our people has been terrific.
That's fantastic. And I certainly see PwC as a company that others look towards, especially with this transparency. So I'm excited to hopefully see, many more companies being brave and courageous and sharing their data and admitting the areas they need to improve, but also highlighting and celebrating the areas that they are seeing forward momentum. One thing that you've said a few times is this word journey. And it's become a buzzword in terms of DEI around journey. Everyone says it's a journey, but what I find in my research on the organizational journey of DEI, that most people don't know what that means. So when you say journey, what does that even mean?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm smiling because I have a bit of a pet peeve, I will admit. I think the word journey is appropriate, but it can't be used as an excuse. And so I spend my time in the business community primarily, and I spend a lot of time with CEOs. And I truly believe CEOs are remarkable creatures. They can generally get anything done when they put their minds to it. And so CEOs can do M&A, raise capital, integrate companies, go into new markets, and they get it done. And there's no CEO in their right mind would ever walk into their board and say, we're losing market share in Europe, and we're on it. It's a journey, right? Like it's a journey. Like they would never do that. And so, like what we hope and we advise our clients on is you can't let diversity, inclusion, and equity be a journey in that sense. Like you need the same passion, discipline, measurement, accountability to any other business opportunity that you bring there to D&I. And that element, I worry about the word journey because it can't be used for an excuse. You need to bring the same level of intensity. Now, that being said, evolving culture is a journey. Like evolving culture of organizations is a journey. Evolving society is a journey. And there is an element of patience. As I think, as you know, we're now getting very active in public policy. Evolving public policy is a journey. You need to educate, you need to show people different ways, measure pros and cons. So I think the word journey has an appropriate usage in diversity and inclusion. I just think we need to guard against using it as a implicit excuse for not to go hard at it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, and not using it as a crutch, right? Speaking of those journeys, one thing that I teach our students about is that for leaders, there's often this simultaneous personal and professional journey when we're thinking about DE&I. And sometimes those journeys are in parallel where the organization and the leader is learning and moving at the same pace, but sometimes the leader outpaces the organization or vice versa, or there's even conflict in those journeys. Can you tell us a little bit about your personal journey in this space, particularly as a white male in America? Many people might, quite frankly, look at you in your position of privilege and not think that you would be really connected to these issues. So can you tell us a little bit on the personal side?
Yeah, so thank you. So maybe to do that, I want to give you a little bit of my background. I grew up in Boston. My parents were very working class. My father had 3 jobs. He worked as a utility worker. He worked at the newspaper on the night shift. And when the utility was on strike, he was a garbage man. And my mother worked as a cashier in a supermarket. And we frankly did not have a big focus on education in my house. We had a major focus on working hard, being honest, and treating people with respect. Those were drilled into my head. And that's what we focused on. I'm the first person in my family to go to college. In a sense of fairness and respect was really drilled into us at a very, very young age. And that's what was important to me as I grew as a leader. One of the things that became very clear to me as I grew as a leader is you need to have thick skin. The reality is you're never going to please everybody. And a leader's job is to listen and to be humble, but at the end of the day, to make decisions. And one of the things I've learned very early on is that if I'm worried about what everybody's thinking, my head would be swiveling around all the time, and you'd just be in this state of constant, like they're unhappy, and you'd be like a tube of toothpaste. You squeeze it on this side to make them happy, another side. And you need to be principled, and you need to follow what you believe is the right thing for your organization, and morally what you think is the right thing. And I've come to appreciate that as I've grown. And you mentioned some leaders outpace their organization, and some organization outpace the leader. I'm definitely one who is pacing my organization. I'm very, very fast mover and very quick after we get all input to make a decision. And over the last 4 years, we have moved PwC very, very fast. And I'm very willing to say we got it 80% right, 20% wrong, not get defensive, fix it, see your problem, fix it, move on. I believe that's how successful organizations move. I had several very close friends of mine inside the firm reach out to me and say, Tim, we didn't elect you for this. Like, you're focusing on the wrong things. And Dr. Washington, that hurt. I listened. I came to appreciate where they were coming from, but it didn't deter me from what I needed to do. I needed the thick skin to know not to get angry at them, not to get mad, to try to spend time with them and bring them along, but also not to let it take me off what I knew was right. I've really learned to listen. I'll just share with you another story. Earlier today, I gave a talk in Minneapolis to a bunch of CEOs there, and I shared this story with them. We talk about this all the time with our people. After a webcast in June, it was June, one of our people reached out to me. I get back to everybody. It's honestly exhausting, but I get back to everybody. One of our senior managers, she wrote me and she said, Tim, I'm all in on what this firm is doing. Like, I thank you, I appreciate it, but I want to share my perspective. And my husband is a Minneapolis police officer. He works the night shift. We have 2 children. I put them to bed, and then I kiss him goodbye as he goes out for the night shift, not knowing if he's going to come back with all the violence we're having in our city right now. I hide it from the kids. I carry that stress. And every night he goes, I don't know if he's going to come home. He doesn't condone what happened with George Floyd. He knows that it was wrong. I need your help, Tim, in making sure everybody knows it's not all police are bad or all police are good. And she went down the list of all this, like her worry about all or none. For me, that was listening to those points of view, and that has helped me be a better leader. I've adjusted my messaging, how I speak, because as I listen and not get defensive when people give me feedback around how to better communicate and lead better, it's without a doubt maybe a better leader, whether it be people who have said we're going too far, or people have said, Tim, your messaging might be construed as you're condemning an entire group. I've had to listen every time, and it makes me better at what I do.
Fantastic. So I want to make sure we talk about CEO Action. It's one of my favorite organizations, been following you all since the inception a few years ago. Why did you decide to co-found CEO Action? And tell us about some of the efforts that you all have been successful and maybe some of your challenges.
Yeah, and I think it's an amazing lesson. You mentioned that I went to Babson College, and if the viewership here doesn't know, it's known for entrepreneurship. And frankly, one of the reasons I've stayed at PwC for now over 30 years is because I've had the ability to be an entrepreneur, like just inside the firm. And the story of CEO Action is one of entrepreneurship, because after our day-long discussion on race, I was leaving the office. It was 8 o'clock at night. It was an exhausting day, one that started in Atlanta, ended in New York. And one of our Black professionals, a senior manager, he stopped me in the office and he said, thank you, but, and there was a but. He said, what's your role outside of the firm? And I will admit, at first I was like, can I just get a break? Like, We just did this momentous thing. Can I take a breather? But that night I tossed and I turned, and he was right. Like, we were sitting on a major brand in PwC. We have thousands of clients. I do have a bigger role. And after listening to him and then talking to dozens of CEOs, we landed on the idea of creating a new organization, entrepreneurship. Like, we landed on the idea of creating an organization. And what we did is we asked CEOs to recognize on a topic they're uncomfortable about, on a topic they know they're behind. We asked them to voluntarily work with us to make commitments that the business community could do better. And we asked them to make 4 basic commitments. 1, making the workplaces safe to have these conversations. 2, making unconscious bias training available to everybody. 3, sharing best practices, because diversity inclusion is not competitive, it's a societal opportunity. And 4, committing to do an annual D&I plan. We asked people to join us to make that commitment, to show that CEOs were willing to own the issue. When we launched the group in June of 2017, we had 112 CEOs. And as you and Rebecca pointed out, today we have 1,400. Those 1,400 CEOs represent over 22 million employees across the country. So what have we been doing over the last 3.5 years? We have had over 800 companies have days of understanding. What we did on July 21, 2016 to continue, we've had over 800 now hold their days of understanding, and hundreds of them do it on a regular basis. Rebecca mentioned the Check Your Blind Spot tour. We bought a touring bus that has toured the country pre-pandemic, gone to hundreds of colleges and universities, businesses, NBA's All-Star Game, South by Southwest, Major League All-Star Game, and we've reached over 1 million people with unconscious bias training through gamification, virtual reality to teach unconscious biases. We've gathered CEOs 3 times annually to talk about our role in leadership. And just by pure coincidence, tomorrow is the 4th annual gathering of CEOs, and I'll have 500 CEOs and then also 900 CHROs or CDOs come together tomorrow for 4 hours to talk about the next step in our leadership. So not only did we form the group, not only has it grown exponentially, our impact has been amazing. And CEOs pushing and inspiring each other to go more and more. So that's a little bit around what we've been up to.
That's fantastic. I know you are so proud of the work that y'all have done. You know, and I remember you were telling me earlier about when you first started, you were having to beg, borrow, and steal to get people to join. And I told you about, you know, how companies I talked to at the time were a little hesitant to join. Like, what is this? And what is it even going to do? And you also mentioned that in the last 5 months, you've had a surge of companies also joining. I think you mentioned 400 companies have joined since the murder of George Floyd. And to me, I wonder, you know, is there a bit of performative allyship in that surge of people joining? And if so, is that a good or a bad thing? I mean, how do we navigate that reactionary and that reactionary mechanism that a lot of people have to just want to do something that maybe 6 months ago they didn't have the bandwidth or the resources to do?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it's both good and bad, honestly, right? I mean, the bad part is it took George Floyd's killing and all the national attention or global attention on it to have some companies step up. It is important to point out hundreds were already stepping up prior to, but clearly we've seen a surge because we have seen over 400 new members join CEO Action since George Floyd's killing. Now let me get to the good part. The good part is companies are stepping up and they're listening to their communities, they're listening to their people and other stakeholders like investors, boards, and policymakers and the like. So I see companies willing in. Now, frankly, time will tell how many hang in there as we progress. But one of the things that I love about CEO Action, the strategy that I describe is we get people in the boat. Once we get in the boat, we pull each other along where it's that healthy competition. So tomorrow at the gathering of CEOs, like we'll all hear what each other's doing. We'll all hear the struggles we have. And there's no doubt in my mind, we'll all leave with a little bit more sense of urgency. I heard this about what PwC is doing. I heard this about what Hyatt's doing. I heard this about what Hewlett Packard is doing. And now I'm going to do more on my side. So getting them in the boat is the first step, and then pushing and pull each other along is the next step. And maybe if I can, Dr. Washington, I'll give you another big thing I'm excited about. Prior to George Floyd's killing, CEO action was all focused on what we can do better inside our four walls. What George Floyd's killing did is it brought a light to what I'll say the public policy challenges that we have in this country. And what I'm proud to tell you is I heard from a couple hundred CEOs after George Floyd's killing, and the conversations generally went something like this. Horrific, I'm glad we're doing what we're doing on CEO action, but what more can we do? Like, what more can we do? And that led to weeks of discussion and debate, and ultimately led to a subset of those CEOs willing to go after public policy. And so entrepreneurship came into play again, and we started an umbrella organization called CEO Action for Racial Equity, where for the first time, we're going after public policy at scale. And so what we did is we invited the 1,400 CEOs, invited, not required, them to contribute one or more fellows to a 2-year fellowship to create a startup organization to go after public policy. And overnight, we had a scale group who would spend full time working on public policy. So in October, we onboarded 250 people from over 100 companies. In January, we'll onboard another 250 people from another 200 companies. So we will have overnight a 500-person startup working on public policy in 4 discrete areas: public safety, public health, financial inclusion, and education. Like overnight, we have scale, and a subset of those CEOs, 200, willing to dedicate one or more employees, and let's see if we can't really make a difference at the city, state, and federal level in those 4 areas.
That's fantastic. What I love about what you're saying is you're really bringing to life this concept of sphere of influence that I teach our students about. It's that we all have an individual sphere of influence, and each organization has a sphere of influence, right? And if we're only focused on internal or our customers, we're missing the bigger picture of all the areas that we can have influence. And I heard you from your personal story of what more can I do outside of PwC, and that led to CEO Action. And then CEO Action is further expanding its sphere of influence in this CEO for Action for Racial Equity. So again, hats off to you all, and I look forward to seeing what comes out of that new initiative. Now, I want to make sure we save some time for audience questions, but do want to ask you, as we're looking towards the future, what's next on the horizon for PwC, and what should I be teaching our MBA and undergrad students in business about what they need to be knowing about the future of DEI for them as future business leaders?
Yeah, thank you. So I by the way, I love what you're teaching around sphere of influence, because what I've come to appreciate is we sit in these seats, these humble seats, these CEO seats, for a very short period of time. Yeah. And our goal, our responsibility goes well beyond increasing revenue and profits. And I'm a true believer that if you do things right, those outcomes follow. Like good outcomes follow, those are outcomes, but it's a result of doing many, many things well, of which I think people is one, and driving the right environment for people and also your communities. And your point about sphere of influence, what I've come to appreciate is, and this gets to what's next for PwC, our goal is to help inspire the business community to be the best they can. And we will be spending more and more time to both share our mistakes, share our learnings, share our financial assets, our human capital assets, to try to make the business community as best we can. One of my most satisfying moments is when I'll be talking to a CEO about a piece of business, and they'll first say, look, I want to thank you for you pushing us and the leadership that you're providing the business community. And I expect that of us. And I think we should all expect that of each other as CEOs and leaders. My advice to you and to your students, and one of my dreams, I'll give you one of my dreams. I would love to have taught in every college and university where people are coming into the business world. I would love to have taught a universal course on diversity and inclusion that would cover 4 elements. I would love to have us all understand first the demographics. Like the demographics of our country don't lie. They're not political, it's factual. We have a census, like they're factual. And understanding where our demographics are and where they're going is really important. It's good business, it's good leadership. It'll drive talent strategies, customer segmentation strategies. It'll drive how we fund our society. So understanding demographics. The second thing is I want us to all understand measurement. Like we're taught in business schools, ROE, ROI, income, net income, operating income. We need to understand how to calculate a pay gap. Like that's really important. Like we need to teach measurement. I equally hope that we teach leadership, like how you deal with leadership. And then I also hope that we teach what I'll say public-private partnership, which I think is hugely important as well. So I would love the more we can learn that, and the people listening to this conference and dialogue, those are the types of things that I think that are critical coming into the business world, because it opens up your eyes very quickly to what the opportunities are.
That's fantastic. And I think it's something that Georgetown McDonough, as well as many other business schools, will likely take you up on that offer to develop such a curriculum, right? Because it's important and we want to see it universally. As we turn to some of the audience questions, I do want to just ask you, what does the ideal world look like? What does workplace utopia look like for you as we look towards the future and know that our efforts can be daunting and frustrating, but also gratifying and gives us moments for growth? So what does workplace utopia look like around DEI for you?
So, I'll share with you a couple of things. Our goal that we laid out in our report, we want PwC to look like our society. We want PwC to reflect what's in colleges all across the country and what our demographics are. And I see us on that journey in terms of where we're trying to get to. At a more human level, it's where every person can realize their full potential. It's where everybody can get to the point where they feel like they're on equal footing to realize their full potential. And I'll just share with you a very, very, very formative story in my development. And I tell people I learned more, with all due respect to my professors at Babson, I learned more from this particular experience than I did in any other one moment in my life. I was 19 years old. I was shucking lettuce in the back room at the supermarket that I worked at while I was paying for college. And there was a boy who had a disability who worked at the supermarket. And me and two of my friends were making fun of him. And I was the leader. Like I was the leader of the group making fun of this boy behind his back, of course. And the store manager, a guy named Richie Ordway, who has since passed, had no college education. He walked by and he heard me. And he pointed at me and he said, "Knock it off." He said, "He's giving you 100% of what he's capable of giving you. What more do you want?" Because I was making fun of how slow a worker he was. I learned more, Dr. Washington, from that. Like my job is to create an environment where everybody can give 100% of what they're capable of. And when they do, they get great opportunities. And for me, that's utopia. Like where every person, regardless of what they're capable of giving, they can give 100% of what they're capable of. And when they do, they get great opportunities. That's the environment we're trying to get.
That's fantastic. And that's certainly someplace I'd want to work.
Yeah.
So we just have a few minutes for some audience questions. There have been quite a few questions around having conversations around racial inequity, but also other challenges around DEI. And the tone of these questions are more like, how do we go beyond just these big events where everyone's together, they're off their desk for the day and it's great, but how do we integrate this in our daily work and our daily lives? How have you encouraged that? And what advice do you have for people trying to do that?
I really appreciate those questions because that's one of my worries. Like that, I think these big events are good. I think when a company has a day of understanding, but it needs to ultimately become cultural. So that those questions are spot on. Those questions. So what we have tried to do is we try to make it part of our day-to-day. So we're like our day-to-day, just like any other company or organization, is very busy. We're in the service business. You're meeting the needs of clients all the time. What we've encouraged our people is to leave time in the day in your working groups, your working day in and day out, to talk about it, to talk about the events in the news, to talk about what's on your mind, to talk about where your challenges are. And by the way, we don't limit it to diversity and inclusion. Mental health now is huge in this pandemic. And we're encouraging our people to talk to each other. How are you coping? How are you doing? What are you working? Are you accessing our resources? So we've tried to build it into our day-to-day So it's not episodic, because honestly, it won't be sustainable if it is just episodic. So we've encouraged our people to embed these human topics in your day-to-day. When something happens in your community that's on your mind, talk about it. When something happens in your day-to-day life, talk about it. And we encourage carving time out of the day-to-day to leave time to do that.
Yeah. So we have some other questions in honoring that PwC is a global firm. We know you're the US chairman, but how do you navigate the fact that race and in other aspects of D&I are different globally? I often, tell people that organizations need to have a global D&I strategy, but local level implementation. How does PwC navigate that?
Yeah, I think your advice is very good, by the way. So I do sit on our global leadership team, and that's a very real issue. And the good news is our race is primarily a U.S. issue. That's not entirely, but primarily, because there's clearly challenges in other parts of the world like UK and Canada or others. But when you look at other parts of the world, gender is the predominant issue, and the progress made on gender is not nearly as much as in the United States. And we're not done on gender in the United States, to be clear as well. It is very important for an organization to have a broad set of values, and that's what we try to do at PwC. But our diversity strategy global is targeted to where the biggest needs are in that particular area. So, for example, I spent time all across the globe, but in Brazil, where you don't have race as a predominant issue, it is gender and disability. Like we drive like crazy in those areas, but all under our values of care and respect. And so we try to use that broad umbrella, but it is without a doubt targeted. And as I talk to CEOs, much of what they've struggled with in the George Floyd world is they're making improvement in the US, but when they have 1,000 people in China, it's race is not the issue. It is more about gender that they're trying to drive. Or when they have people in other parts of the world, it is more about gender that they're trying to drive. So they've struggled a bit with how do you balance that messaging? We need to make progress on race, but there's other areas in other parts of the world where the gaps are much bigger.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's something that organizations will continue to struggle with and figure it out like we're doing everything else, right? One step at a time. My last question, I think, is a really helpful one, especially for much of our audience that are students or maybe early career professionals. The question says, how do you move the conversation down from the C-suite to middle management? What are 2 to 3 concrete things that early career professionals and students can do specifically to sustain momentum around DEI issues?
Yeah, so the biggest thing I would do is I would encourage you. The workplace is very different than when I started 30 years ago, right? It is very different. My biggest piece of advice is to embed it in your day-to-day. Talk to people about it. And by the way, I like many of our listeners here are white, like you too, like all of us, like embed it in your day-to-day. Like when you start at an employer soon in your future, make it part of your day-to-day. Ask somebody, how are you doing? Is this on your mind? Are you struggling? Can I help? Was something said to you that made you uncomfortable? That's like be part of creating a culture at your organization. And by the way, choose wisely where you go. Like it's a talent-driven market. Choose where you go, but make it part of the culture in your day-to-day. And I do want to stress, Dr. Washington, that's all people. That's not just minorities. That is like all of us should be enabling these conversations. Understand what's happening in the local community. Understand what's happening in the media, because I'm going to go back to something I said earlier. When somebody is harmed and they're Black, like that weighs on many Blacks, not just the person affected. Like ask somebody, does this bother you? I read this in the newspaper. I heard this on the news. Does this trouble you? I go back to last couple of years when immigration orders get passed down and they affect people. If you're white, ask somebody, is that in your mind? Yeah. Is there something I can do? I can't change the immigration rule, but can I help you? Can I be a buffer? Can I talk to you? Like, those are things you can do day in and day out and not wait for that big event. Because honestly, it's a little bit too late to say you care then, like now, right? So that's what I would encourage you, and you can do that now.
I think that's sage advice, and we're so grateful for your time today. Thank you. As I said before, this is an honor to share this space with you. Thank you for your transparency on a personal level and all the work that you've been doing with PwC and CEO Action. I look forward to future conversations and seeing how we can continue to move the ball forward on these efforts. With that, I'll turn it back over to our team, Rebecca, and thank everyone for being here today.
Thank you so much, everybody.
All right.